Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, and I hope everybody's having a great day. And again, wanted to jump right into the conversation and the content that everybody's hopefully looking for. So again, we have an incredibly talented group here, knowledgeable group that has a ton of experience, and we hope to share that with you. First, want to introduce Dr. Scott Leune, who is probably known to most of you, and certainly one of the people we go to at TNT to sort of learn the right way to do things, the best way to do things, and again, different than many people, has a track record of success doing exactly what he says we should do. So very honored to have him here. Also joined by Cassie Tallon, who is, again, a very, very talented member of the dental community and somebody that I think is a great resource, has a relationship with Curve dental software as well, but I think is again a great experience base that, again, will be very helpful to our conversation today. And then last but not least, Rich May, who is Vice President of Business Development at Mango Voice. Again, one of the leading voice over internet and really AI pioneers, and sort of saying, hey, how do we use that technology to improve our practices? So again, very happy to have them. Myself, I'm Tom Gildersleeve. I'm one of the partners here at TNT Dental, and we are a dental marketing company. Have the opportunity to work with about 1,200 dentists across the country, all 50 states. So we're going to just work behind the scenes here and make sure you learn from the expertise of the folks that are here to share that. So let's jump right in, I guess. And I don't know if you guys, maybe just go around real quick if you want to add anything to my introduction, Dr. Leune, or just tell the folks that are here with us this morning any more about yourself or your background. We'll quickly rotate, and then otherwise we'll jump right into the questions.
Yeah, sure. I want to get right into it, so I won't say much. But if no one's heard of me before, I've built and sold many startups myself. I've also been part of about 200 startups nationwide that I was financially involved with and helped manage. And over the last 10 years or so of my career, we've had more than 20,000 dental offices use one of my companies that I've built. And I spend most of my time teaching dentists how to build highly successful practices, startups, even existing ones, buying them and building groups. And so everything you're going to hear from me comes from a very large database of what's actually happening now, what's working now, what's making money now.
Perfect. All right, Cassie, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yes, I'm actually a fractional operator, work boots on the ground with clinics all over the U.S. and beyond to just help with the growth trajectory. A lot of what I do in addition to that is serving private equity once the LOI is signed to ensure that it's going to be a good investment and achieve the right EBITDA. And, over the years, my focus has really become more on creating the scalable group model versus DSO, although I still serve DSOs. So I'm excited to share some of that boots on the ground experience with you today and just what I'm seeing in the space and working directly with doctors.
Perfect. And Rich?
Well, I just want to say I'm just honored to be in the room with Leune and Cassie. Like, they're both really big names, well known in the industry. I will just say very quickly that, at Mango Voice, our key focus is not to be just a really great phone provider, but we're probably the only phone provider that's actually trying to solve the problem of missed calls and missed opportunities in dentistry right now, and how we can create more opportunity from the phone. I think we're the only ones trying to really help solve problems as opposed to just sell you a system. And really honored to be here and love to get into the conversations that we have. This is a great topic that every startup should be thinking about.
Perfect. Great. Well, yeah, thank you again, everybody, for being here. It is an all-star cast for sure. So let's jump right into it. I think, we were talking a little bit before the session started, and Dr. Leune had mentioned it's sort of the golden age of dental practice startups, and maybe start with that, again, a little bit off script here, but just give us some perspective of why you say that and sort of what are the markers that you're seeing out there. And then maybe, again, Cassie, you can add some on the, boots on the ground perspective as well. But let's start with that and give some big picture context.
Yeah, sure. So when we look at, what makes it a wonderful opportunity for startups, we kind of have to think about different categories of things. One category is, are the demographics supporting building new practices. And when we do a demographic analysis in almost every part of the country, we see a huge need for new startups. And this is a result in part of kind of what happened with the COVID days, some offices shutting down, a lot of patients displaced. It also has to do with the fact that the DSOs had kind of a pause that happened in the industry from some challenges they had with refinancing debt and expansions and EBITDA pressures. And so as we sit here today, there's this huge demand in almost every corner of the country. In addition to that, production's going up. The amount of dentistry is going up. The amount of dentistry people need, as well as the advancements we have clinically in doing bigger cases more readily in a regular practice, is all going up. And so this kind of culmination is showing that the dollar amount of dentistry that is kind of flooding the market, the demand, it does not have enough practices to go to. On top of all of that, landlords have been struggling a bit getting quality tenants into their spaces since COVID has kind of changed the landscape for a lot of commercial real estate. And so dentists are getting incredible deals right now in building new practices. On top of all of that, there's some major tax benefits to building practices right now as well. And the banks have really done a great job stepping up and building in terms for dentists in getting startup loans. The big downside, I guess you could point to, though, the thing that is worse today than it used to be, is the construction costs. Construction costs have gone through the roof, and that has caused the banks to kind of make up for that by improving how they loan money to dentists. But when I step back, I have never seen so many areas of the country need startups. I've never seen so many startups make as much money as they are. And these are beautiful practices in ideal locations with equipment and with staff that owner dentist actually chose. It represents what they want out of their career. And it's just building such wealth for so many people.
Yeah, no, that's great. Cassie, what are you seeing? Anything that would add to that context or add to that specifics there?
Yeah, I think it's a great time to be in dentistry and to even consider group formation for internal referrals. For so long, we saw practices being purchased kind of in this silo model, which gave us really, to Scott's point, some gaping holes there. And I also think we're in an era right now where, clinics have diminished in, patient care so significantantly that the opportunity to come in and have a wow factor for patients with a streamlined, efficient workflow model with AI integration and just wow a patient with those standards of care that are really non-existent today. A lot of the practices that were purchased by DSOs, standard of care was diminished. And again, that's not a blanket statement of all DSOs, but a lot of them were focused on the multiples and how to grow those numbers without focusing on the patient care and retention. And so really it's a wonderful time to come in and say, okay, with the streamlined efficiencies that exist today, I could hire half the number of people that a traditional dental practice would have required even 5 years ago and have a very lean model that serves patients well, but also produces a significant amount of income, more than it ever has before because of the lower overhead. And also we're seeing right now that where the DSO could tout that they had the best, purchasing power because of their numbers and all of these other facets that were accessible only in the DSO sector, so many businesses have worked to create a space for that singular location or a group of 4 locations to have similar pricing structure, to have accessibility to things that the DSO touted that they only had. So it's really an incredible time to be in dentistry. And it's also an incredible time to even be looking at specialty pop-up clinics because there is such a dire need for those things like a sleep apnea clinic or, sleep appliance therapy or something of that nature. So yeah, again, really excited to see what's happening in our space and a great time to make a lot of money if you want to take on a practice of your own.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into that a little bit, and not going right in order of the questions, but to that point is when you mentioned, the real estate, Dr. Leune, and what are the factors that you see? I mean, you hear the things about location, hours of operation, being in network with insurance. I mean, what are the components that you say, hey, when we're building the model of startup, here's the things we've got to have to give us a better chance of success or give us the best chance of success? What are those decision factors, or what are the things that, hey, spend some extra money on real estate because it's worth it, or get this certain type of location, or get put next to this, to the Whole Foods, or to the, I mean, those kinds of things.
Yeah, you kind of have to step back a bit. So in your question, there's a lot of assumptions that have actually kind of been proven to be incorrect now today. So, for example, the assumption we need to be really visible right next to a Whole Foods is no longer valid today, because the vast majority of patients are coming from searches and referrals, not from a kind of physical search of where is a dentist. So you can be a lot less visible today and still maintain great patient flow than even 10 years ago. Also, if you think about what will fill a practice with dentistry, there's a lot of layers to that. You could have an area that doesn't have enough dentists, and so therefore there's a lot of demand floating around. But if you don't market well for that, you don't capture it. Or you could be really good at marketing, really smart at marketing, or have a huge budget and capture an oversized portion of a smaller number of leads and have enough patients in an area that maybe is competitive. And you could keep going down the path. You could be a dentist that diagnoses a lot of dentistry because you know how to do a lot of dentistry, and therefore you don't need a lot of patients. Or you could be a dentist that has great case acceptance or higher fees, and so therefore you may not need as many patients. There are knobs to turn up or down that will impact, can we be successful in this location? But if I kind of put all of that aside and make some generalizations right now, I'd say there are minimums we need to hit when it comes to population density and ratios and income that are very easy to hit. And when we choose locations, we need to choose locations that fit well within a budget, which means those are likely smaller footprints than in the past because construction costs are so high. Yet they still have the ops we need. They still have the storage we need. They still have the patient experience we want. And we're still going to have room for technology. If we can meet the demographic minimums and we can meet the budgetary requirements, after that, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of game to play to maximize the success of a location. Lean and mean is the way to go for a private dentist with a limited budget, a limited loan. Lean and mean means we're very smart about how we staff and use technology, how we bring in patients, and how we spend money after we collect it.
And on that note, I guess to sort of build on that is that, that startup, I know your goals are, with the groups you're working with are sort of, hey, we can get to $2 million of collections in that third year. That's sort of the gold standard, you could say.
I'd say it differently. It's not our gold standard. Our minimum standard to say we were successful is if a modest sized startup can collect $2 million in year 3, where half of that is what you might call traditionally take home pay for the owner operator dentist, or what you might call overhead, right? We're that's dental speak right now. That's not financial speak, but if we can collect $2 million and take home $1 million in year 3 in a modest size practice, we would say that is our expectation. Now, to some people listening to this, that might sound off. That might sound different or weird. Some people might be thinking 50% overhead is almost unheard of in these days, where you got to pay staff and all this stuff. That's not true. That's just they haven't been exposed to how to do that. Or maybe some people are listening to this saying 2 million collections by year 3. Shoot, I could do it in year 1 because I do full arches. That's possible as well. That's why we're not saying that's the gold standard. We're saying that's the standard. Does that make sense? We need to achieve 50% overhead, $1 million take-home pay, 2 million collections by the third year we're open, or we're going to be adjusting our strategy.
And excuse me, walk me through sort of the steps. So at 6 months, at a year, at 18 months, I mean, what should I be looking for? New patient counts. Again, obviously there's wide ranges based on type of dentistry, but just sort of what are the things that sort of standard milepost that your team's looking at to say, hey, we're on track, or we got to maybe adjust?
I like and hate the question.
Yeah.
So I like the question because we all need some more to look at, to know what to expect, or to know how we're doing. But I also hate the question because new patient flow is just one ingredient of what ends up baking dentistry that falls onto my schedule, right? Yeah. So I could have really low new patient flow, but diagnose huge procedures with high case acceptance and blow it out of the park, right? Yeah. Or the opposite is true. I could have high new patient flow and darn low fees and practically no diagnosis, and I could struggle. Yeah. But if I'm going to be kind of general about this, I'd say 50 new patients a month for a regular practice with regular fees, with regular dentistry would give us great success. Yeah. Anything more than that, and we're going to just be speeding this up, condensing time, and potentially hitting the big fork in the road right in the middle of our forehead that says, we're now too full. What do? Do we expand, or do we raise fees? We're really trying to race to that moment of being too full is where we're trying to hit.
And staffing wise, again, obviously that general practice, that middle of the road, hey, that's our guidepost. Obviously, we're going to vary on each side. We get the question all the time with practices that we work with is, I'm working as an associate. Should I go there full time? Should I stay 2 days to start? Should I have assistant hygienist, a front desk person to start? I mean, to walk through some of the guidelines that somebody might be thinking about in your system, at least.
Yeah, you're asking me the question, right? So I'd say there's evidence on how many days you should be open per week, and that is 3. They don't have to be full days, but at least 3 partial days. Otherwise, you lose people on the phone. You lose conversion. Now, how should we staff that? Let's think responsibly. We need to be able to capture all the demand that hits us without being overstaffed from that. Right. And technology is going to allow us to do that. So what happens is we will have one front office person, but we will utilize technology on the phones. Mango's AI agent is a great example of that, where we've got someone that is getting 92% of our missed calls, patient's information, instead of a voicemail that gets less than 20% of people leaving information. Right. So, but we were also going to utilize live people until the AI receptionist can function as a live scheduler. So what we're doing is let me back up. We've got one front office person on site. We've got virtual admin off site that's handling the overflow of calls while they're doing other work. And in a situation where they can't answer the call either, or we're just closed and no one's available to answer, Mango's coming in to save the day. And basically, at today's AI Mango receptionist is an incredibly talented answering service in a way that gets patients to wait for us to call them back or text them back or email back to schedule. They will give us that shot. That combination is incredibly powerful on just the phones. We're talking about just phones right now, basically. Practices that are missing 1 or 2 of those things are going to have dramatically slower growth. We don't need any more front office people for a startup than the one on site, plus the virtual, plus technology. We don't need a hygienist until a very specific moment in time, and it's not in the beginning. And we start on day 1 with just 1 dental assistant, and then there are triggers to expand beyond that happen. Yeah. But on day 1, it's just a dentist assistant and a front office person on site. Everything else is technology or virtual assistants.
Yeah. And I guess, Rich, maybe jump into that a little bit on the technology side. So someone who's not familiar with Mango Voice or any of the other AI systems are out there, how do you guide folks coming to you? Hey, here's the setup. Is there options? Is there baseline? Give us some context on the technology there.
Yeah. I mean, the phone system should actually get integrated pretty quickly on, just because of 2 factors. One, for startups especially, and Scott I've listened to Scott speak about this too. You have to have a phone number for insurance credentialing and for business listing. These are really important things. Mango is one of those companies that gives that to you for free. Like, I'm not trying to make this too much of a sales pitch, but if someone's out there like charging you a big amount of money for a phone number, then they're just taking advantage of you. A lot of services can get you a number for free. Mango is one of those. But that we also let you start using the phone system, so you can start, taking calls, about 2 months out and start getting people scheduled. So this is a really important piece, because you've got to be able to like start using your business number, because you want to list it for marketing reasons and you want to have insurance credentialing. And then also you can start making calls and actually getting people scheduled. And that's really important. And with a company like Mango, we have a mobile app, we have a web phone, so you can work from home, you can take calls on the go, because you're a busy practice owner that's doing a startup. And we can set up your phone system in your office when you're ready for phones on your build out. We can ship those out to you and get you completely set up. So as soon as you want to start listing your business, Mango can get involved. And I mean, I think Scott and other experts can speak to like when is the right time to do that. And we're ready to do it as soon as you are. But the other nice thing is what we're talking about here with the AI receptionist is no more missed calls. I mean, if you're a startup practice and you're trying to get as many people in the chair as possible, you can't afford to miss calls or have them go to voicemail. And as Dr. Leune said, we're getting really great engagement on our AI receptionist and really poor engagement on voicemails today. At like very few people are leaving good voicemails with good information. AI receptionists are gathering all the information you need to acquire a new patient. So these are tools that are out there and are available, and they're not overly expensive, but the ROI or the return on investment on them is definitely worth it. So Mango is definitely one to look at. I'm a little biased for sure, but definitely something to take a look at.
Yeah, and I guess Cassie, on that, just to to integrate in, because I know Mango and Curve work very closely together, and there's obviously you're working with all kinds of practice management systems and other technologies. Where do you see that fitting into other ways to interact with patients, bring patients in, online scheduling, some of those kinds of things?
Yeah, I think just an overall improved workflow where things are added in to be more efficient, that likely wouldn't require another person to be hired to accomplish those things. Online scheduling is very big right now. I'm very big on setting up a different methodology around the intake types. Right now we see where practices are mostly doing comp exams and limited exams. And I'm of the mindset that from even a marketing perspective with a new startup, come in and start offering, ortho consults or implant consults or second opinions, and make sure that there's an entry point for some of those areas as well, which again can all be automated. And the other thing I just wanted to add, especially in the startup space, as Curve can be this incredible tool of creating a better system and workflow when you change out your PMS, but looking at a broad scope of where it is you would like to practice and putting it into ChatGPT or Gemini or some of the other AI tools out there, and start to do some competitive analysis of what's around you and what they're marketing and what they're offering, because you may have a sweet spot that you don't even realize in a specific radius. And then that allows you to amp up the way you leverage AI and the way you leverage online scheduling. So if specifically implants aren't something that are being addressed or cared for with patients in the community, that can be a great opportunity for production and growth. So honing in on that is another big piece of it.
Yeah. Dr. Leune, any other context to add? Is this on the technology front, or how you pick and choose or fit the pieces together?
Yeah, there's a lot of ongoing costs associated with the decision you make. So, for example, if you're going with a traditional server-based system, or even another system that might be online-based, but you're going to have to buy a bunch of third-party software to kind of layer into it, then you are not only going to have a lot of software costs per month as a startup, you are also going to have a lot of IT support costs. And you may even have more IT upfront equipment costs. So when you go with a curve, for example, not only will you save on equipment, not only will you save on adjunctive softwares, but you will also cut your IT support, your monthly IT support service costs probably by half. So that's an important kind of component as well to picking the software. And a lot of dentists, unfortunately, that have never done this before, they're just kind of comparing list prices of things, maybe not understanding the impact down the line of this decision. Also, when you think of staffing, an AI agent from Mango costs hundreds of dollars max per month, which is nothing. One patient will pay for months of that service. A virtual admin can cost approximately $11 an hour all in to have someone work from, somewhere else for you virtually. And an on-site person is hard to find, hard to train, hard to keep. And that person can cost, $25 an hour or more, in the front office, for example. So a good model is going to take advantage of these different cost structures, because ultimately I want my on-site person to make more money than they could with any other practice in my area. And I want them to be supported by highly cost-efficient virtual people and technology. And then I end up with a nice profit margin and the very best on-site people I can find that don't want to leave. And so that's kind of the newer strategy, I think, for staffing is, as staff costs have gone up, let's go ahead and climb that cost ladder. We have to, that's the market, but let's supplement our team with more cost-efficient options like an AI agent or a virtual admin, so we can afford to pay our smaller team more per person and succeed in this environment.
Yeah. No, that's great. On that note, when you're looking at a startup, do you look, obviously the dentist got a dental background, the assistant's got a dental background. Is that third person, that front desk, somebody that always has to have a good track record in dentistry, or can you get them from, a customer service role somewhere else, or what's sort of any search guidelines there?
I don't want to speak theoretical. I want to speak real life right now for a second. In real life, the vast majority of startups are being started by dentists that have practically no management experience, practically no software experience. And so in that environment, you do get a lot of benefit paying at the top level of your area for someone in the front office that has a tremendous amount of experience, even if that experience is tainted with bad processes from other practices. They're coming with a lot of industry knowledge that's going to help a practice launch. They come with knowing how to process an EOB and read the ledger and set up, fee schedules, and they understand the nuances of a clearinghouse, and those types of things are incredibly valuable to a dentist opening a practice clean from scratch that has never done it before. Now, theoretically, yes, you could go hire someone from a bank as a bank teller who's got a great attitude and train them up. But realistically, there's no one to train them. There's no one to audit them, to manage that knowledge transfer. Realistically, it doesn't happen so easily. So I believe in the life cycle of a practice, in the beginning, it's much more important to have people with experience while the owner races to get business training themselves, races to master business components of the practice. And then this practice will transition to be almost owner-led by that knowledge. And that owner tries to train their team to do things differently or better, and supplement that team with other members who may not need all of that experience.
Yeah. And I guess I think my screen, but you guys still hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think the video's sort of froze there, so I'm moving more than it appears. But as long as you can hear me, that's all that matters. So on that note, I think then you mentioned a little bit about the size of the practice, being more lean, and so on just to play off that real estate side a little bit more. Again, you mentioned that, and I think how that contributes to the new patient flow. You mentioned they're coming from referrals, they're coming from internet, they're coming. What are when you're building that 50 new patients a month? Is there sort of all hands on deck? We've got to use direct mail. We've got to use, internet. We've got to use word of mouth. We've got to use community. How do you build that marketing model to say, how do we get to that 50 as quickly as we can, to your earlier point?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Are you asking me the question?
Sure. Yeah, and then we'll get to Cassie as well.
Yeah.
I think she's
so at the foundation, we better have all the phones processes and the online scheduling and online messaging processes set up to be good and strong, no holes there, right? Because if we've got holes in the gas tank, we're going to have to keep pouring fuel into that thing to try to go anywhere. So we need to close up the holes at kind of our gate to let people in, right? And if we've closed those up, then in the beginning, we are likely going to take a very aggressive marketing strategy that is going to be multifaceted, because we need to see and know what is going to work the best. So in the beginning, we're going to do a lot of testing on search ad spend and on social ad spend, so digital ad spend. We're going to dive deep into trying to get organic following on social and organic like rankings with search engine optimization. And we are also going to set up automated email campaigns for higher dollar leads that come in but aren't ready to schedule yet, to stay connected with them. And we're also diving into new mover mail, direct mail, and even a kind of split tested direct mail strategy that's very expensive, but it can give us pretty high volume in the beginning. And you can kind of look at it as a startup where it's going to take a good 6 months of pushing these marketing buttons to understand really what's the cost to acquire those patients from those different channels. And then you go through a period of optimization, taking from one area and giving that money to another area that's performing better. Even within just Google ad spend, taking ad money from ads that aren't working well to ads that are, or taking money from comprehensive direct mail to just funneling it into social spend. So let me back up. In these terms, we need to take a shotgun approach to marketing with a fat budget and very good tracking. And then we need to go through a process of reassessing it so that we can get focused on how we spend the money moving forward, all with the assumption that we can answer the darn phones and take online appointments in an efficient way.
Yep. And I apologize. My video is not seeming to video right now. But again, Cassie, add some context to that from your perspective of just sources of new patients and allocating that budget, and trying to, again, just build off what Dr. Leune had shared about the, you there, Cassie?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, about just, how do you get that launch marketing campaign going, and some insider ideas there?
Yeah, I think it depends on the demographic you're targeting and the region that you're going after. I've seen some incredible campaigns run off of geofencing. I don't believe in a large budget for marketing right out of the gate. I think there's some fun that happens in the very beginning to allocate funds in the right location. And I'm a big proponent of community aspects as well, again, depending on regionally where you're based. Most of my experience with dental has been practices that don't have a lot of money to allocate to marketing, but yet they want to be seeing a large number of patients per month. So a lot of creative energy to get there. We're also seeing a shift where Google AdWords and SEO is being replaced by AI. Individuals are utilizing ChatGPT to search out the best dentist to utilize. And I also think that we've, for so long in dental, created this wide net of find a dentist near me, when we should be casting a much smaller net, but with specifics. So again, to add in that curved dental component, that means choosing that our marketing dollars spent on the big rock or those higher volume or higher production items like ortho or implants or crowns. You're doing same day crowns, and really leveraging your marketing budget for those things instead of creating this wide net that casts out and you're bringing in, the patient that's coming in and they have, heavy periodontal issues and they're wanting their standard cleaning and they have no money to spend. A lot of what I see is the marketing overspending to patients that aren't the right fit for the practice. So a lot of that, in my mind, is changing the dollars spent to the larger ticket items for production.
Okay. Yeah, no, great insights. I think it sort of ties into a little bit, and again, start back to you, Dr. Leune. Is every, you mentioned sort of the golden age of startups, and it's a great time. What are the characteristics of the dentist that, I would assume every dentist isn't meant to have a startup. Some are meant to be a partner. Some are meant to be in a part of a group practice. I mean, if you sort of look at your track record, your experience with dentists, who's the most successful? What are the characteristics? What should they be asking themselves? That, hey, am I the right person to go do this?
Well, those are kind of two separate things. Can I have a startup in my life and I'm happy with that decision is different than am I a top performing dentist that has a startup, right? So it's almost like, how can we tell if someone's going to be an amazing parent or not before they have any kids? That gets a little complicated to guess at that. And at the end of the day, we may never feel completely ready to be the perfect parent, right? Just like it may never feel like the perfect time to have a startup. But I think the point is that we need to ask ourselves, is a career where I own a brand new practice in an ideal location with all the things I have picked, is that kind of the North Star I should point to? And if it is, then we can learn along the way how to become the practice we want. Just like we don't know how to ride a bike, even if we study what it's like to ride a bike, and even if we measure our leg strength and our balance and all of that, at the end of the day, half of learning how to ride a bike only happens after you start pedaling and you fall down a few times.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of take a bigger step back and say, do I want to start the next chapter of my career where I control the people I'm with, the technology I use, the location I have, and what it looks and feels like to be in this practice? And I'm going to bet on myself that as I hit bumps in the road, I'm going to be able to navigate those. Now, what kind of personality traits do well in that environment? People that are focused on the big goal. That's one thing. People that are also able to be self-aware, able to look at what's happening with a kind of like an eye of truth as opposed to an eye of excuses.
Yeah.
Someone that is able to say, this is working and this isn't, and we're just going to chip away at it and fix this one thing at a time. We're just going to do our best to move forward. What it doesn't take is being very charismatic or a super dentist or a super producer or someone that can do full arch and sleep apnea therapy and take out impacted wisdom teeth. Although all those things make it faster to be successful.
Yeah.
But they aren't requirements. Now, everyone that does a startup is scared. Everyone that does a startup doesn't know if anyone's going to show up. And so what I like to do is also have everyone ask yourselves, what's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that can happen is I open a startup and there's not enough patients for me to pay the bills every month. So what do? I would probably work as a part-time associate and allow my startup every 6 months to build a bigger and bigger recall base until it can pay its own bills and I don't have to be an associate somewhere. And if I hated the darn thing after all of that, because this is worst case scenario I'm describing right now, I'd sell the practice. And what would I do after I sold the practice? I'd be an associate for someone. That worst case scenario is what everyone's doing right now. They're an associate for someone without control, without taking any profit. They're literally living their worst case scenario of if they were to do a startup and it failed. They'd be right back to where they've been. So when we look at it that way, we can see there's not a lot to lose other than the emotional realization that I didn't like it. Financially, you lose way more by delaying wealth than you do by the risk of doing a startup. I've got dentists that come through our events and we train them on how to do all this stuff. And they were an associate for 10 years. And, 3 or 4 years later, they're taking home $1 million as an owner.
Yeah.
Every one of those 10 years, they paid the universe almost $1 million to delay being an owner. That's the biggest cost, is delaying doing the right thing. Yeah. So I don't want people to think you have to be amazing. You don't. What you have to be is ready to start the next chapter and finally ready to bet on yourself that you're going to be able to get through the bumps in the road.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. I think in any startup, we certainly have the experience from that as, in our agency and everything else. I think that mindset is right. What's the worst case scenario? And I think, back to the I just want to jump around so that the components of the financial model, you mentioned sort of the revenue side, you mentioned, real estate, any milepost there, again, not generalizations are probably not the right way to go here, but that says, hey, I've got to keep I want to get to that $2 million, $1 million take home. How does the first 2 years look to get to that third year? I mean, you got to have some reserves to say, hey, that first 6 months, I'm going to be cash flow negative. I mean, what does that look like?
Yeah, I spent 2 days teaching all this stuff, so it's very complicated just to explain right now. But basically, there's a journey that leads you to collecting at least $2 million by year 3, and that starts in month 1. How much should you collect in month 1 versus month 2 versus month 3, and so forth. And so you get to see very readily, are you on path or off path? Are you ahead or behind? And you can make adjustments. Now, as part of your budgeting for a startup, you are going to budget this thing so that on day 1, you're sitting on a big fat pile of cash, your working capital, that is going to help fund expansion and growth, but also cover the expected losses that you would have. Now, we would project extended losses, but rarely do I see extended losses. But we're going to project extended losses to make sure that we have enough working capital in case that happens. But it's very common to be breaking even within the first 6 months. People do it within the first 1 or 2 months on a regular basis. But yeah, for sure, we need to have working capital to grow and to cover the losses. And to achieve $2 million in collections, let's do the math real quick. Let's say we work 5 days a week. Maybe we work partial days, 9 to 3. I don't know, making something up. 5 days a week, 48 weeks a year, to collect $2 million means we're doing about $8,300 a day. And that $8,300 a day, we'll probably get $2,800 of it in the hygiene department, and we'll get $5,500 of it in the doctor's side. And $2,800 in hygiene department is really easy to do with regular hygiene volume and regular hygienists. $5,500 a day on the doctor's side is really easy to do if we are focused on doing it. So, one Invisalign case gets us there, right? Or an implant case or a sleep apnea case, all those types of cases help. But if we don't know how to do any of that dentistry, we can still do $5,500 a day with just regular crowns and fillings. But if we understand that's the game, that's the focus, financially speaking, then we're going to make the right decisions to get there. And now let me add, we're going to never make money doing something that's wrong. So we don't get wealthy treating people poorly as patients or treating employees poorly. We don't get wealthy, navigating in the gray area of ethics. We don't get wealthy manipulating or lying. None of that. We have to be almost obsessed with doing the right thing. And when we do the right thing with people and with dentistry, then we just need to have some goalposts financially. And if we're aiming for them, we'll hit them. And if we're not aiming for them, it'll be obvious. We'll need to move a little left or a little right by tweaking how we operate the practice.
Yep. Good. Yeah. No, I think any final thoughts? Xena, you want to jump into some of the questions and be respectful of everybody's time here, but a couple of jump into the questions and then we'll sort of come back and recap. But one of the questions that came up from a couple of people watching was, how does Mango specifically integrate with practice management software? Is there, certain ones you guys prefer, certain characteristics you should look for in the software if you're trying to get that integrated solution that, Dr. Leune mentioned, and sort of that idea, hey, I want to have that virtual assistant to be as functional as possible.
Yeah. So we integrate with just about every practice management software in a number of different ways. We do some simple things like screen pops, where it identifies the patient that's calling and gives you a little summary of who it is that's calling, just empowering your front office team to know a little bit more about the patient. And then we do click to calls to make things easier for dialing out. But more importantly, we also do some really great things where we're taking the phone conversations and we're actually creating summaries and creating notes for the patients on those patient conversations and automatically logging those into the practice management software notes. So your team doesn't have to take notes. So startups are already busy enough as it is, and you're trying to train new people. We're giving you a lot of really great feedback with our AI on the phone conversations and then logging those for you. So this is something that is really unique to Mango. No one else is really doing this in the way that we're doing it. And, I think on top of that, to just echo what's already kind of been said a lot, Mango Voice is onboarding 80 to 90 new startups every month. And these startups are thriving. Like, they're doing great work. So if people are nervous or have trepidation around getting and going, like, I've been here for almost 6 years, and we have startups that are now in 3 or 4 or 5 locations, and growing. So the numbers are, as Scott said, like, now is the time to do it and to get out there and create, get your boots to the ground and start your practice. And Mango is the right people to partner with. Curve is a great solution as well. I would definitely lean on Dr. Scott Leune. I've been to many of his seminars and listened to him speak, and he can give you the blueprint if you just follow what he says. I mean, you're gonna hit a home run. TNT marketing is a great asset too. And again, Mango integrates, great support, great setup. We're very easy to use, very user friendly, and very cost effective as well.
Yeah. Two other quick questions, and then we'll wrap up. And again, I think we'll also, just for reference for everybody, we've got great, both all the participants today are more than happy to answer offline questions, get with you directly afterwards. And we'll include that in the follow up, so you have a chance to connect with them directly and get into a more higher level of detail. I think one question that came across on the text or the chat is, anything regionally, start Dr. Leune, that you see trends? You mentioned, it's a great time, but is, the Northeast, any trends there versus the West versus South versus, anything that you see on a big scale?
It's a really understandable question, but the question's coming from a complete lack of knowledge. So in order to support a startup practice, you have to have a kind of bubble of an area that really, needs a dentist. And we've actually spent a lot of money to understand the size of that area. And in a major metropolitan, like a city, like where I'm in right now, San Antonio, that average bubble is a 2.8 mile radius in size. And when you go to a suburb or a smaller kind of city, that's a 3.9 mile radius. Now, what that means is we need a hot spot. Well, we don't even need, but we would like a hot spot that's 2.8 mile radius. That hot spot could be in Orange County. Even though people feel like Orange County is saturated, that spot might be desperate for a startup. Or that spot could be in Oklahoma City, or it can be in Seattle, or it can be in Broward County, Florida. And it's not about, are there certain states that are the best? Are there certain regions that are the best? No, it's all about finding the 2.8 mile radius spot. And so now, I mean, if I were to try to give trends, I could say, yeah, some states like North Carolina have seen kind of an elevated number of startups because there's more locations, there's more bubbles there that need startups. But that doesn't mean that the Orange County bubble isn't way better than anything you'd find in North Carolina or vice versa. So you have to analyze the demographics to understand where the opportunities are ideal. And I would not focus on good states or bad states, good regions or bad regions. I would think of the cities I'm willing to live in, and I would analyze those cities, and you'll find that at least a third of the demographic analysis will show you startup possibilities. You're going to be flooded with locations where you could put a startup, and you are just going to choose the very best ones that you can find.
Yep. One other question, and it sort of references one of the things that we had put out early on. Is there ever a case when you're looking at a startup that says, hey, look, it's better to buy an existing practice? There's certain characteristics that either get you a faster start or get based on a facility, or is there, how do you weigh the pros and cons?
Yeah. Well, if you're doing lots of different locations over time, then buying practices is more advantageous than starting, because when you buy a practice, the bank will give you equity credit from the practice you're buying. And so it's easier to expand to location 2, location 3, location 4. It's easier to get funding. Whereas in a startup, you have to wait for that practice to grow big enough before it's worth the loan you have on it. So if that's one kind of advantage to buying practices. Another advantage to buying practices would be in rare situations where you could not find a decent startup location available, but you've got this desire to keep adding, keep growing or own something soon. Obviously, buying a location is an advantage. There's a lot of disadvantages though. When you buy a location, you kind of pay twice. You pay to buy it, and then you've got to pay to fix and repair and change the whole thing. And that process is very painful and very expensive. Also, many times the location you're buying is not in an ideal long-term spot. It doesn't have the ideal long-term facility and decor and technology. So you're kind of fixing it up. Even if it was already successful, you're going to go through that. That can be difficult, and it could also represent a lower return on your investment compared to starting a practice in an ideal location. But in general, the people that are going to buy practices instead of starting them, if they know how to do both, are going to choose acquisitions because of a funding issue with multiple locations. That's probably the number one reason. Of course, we can come up with all kinds of fine print with that, but that's probably the main reason why I would tell someone, hey, in your situation, you need to look at buying practices in addition to startups, or solely buying practices. The reason is not startups are difficult and risky, buying practices are easy and low risk, therefore you should buy. No, that's not the case today at all.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, very good. Again, I guess we'll go around just any final thoughts or things that you want to just emphasize again in that world of startups and things that you want to leave our listeners or our viewers with, and then otherwise we'll wrap up. So I guess maybe start with Cassie. I think you're still there with us. Any sort of final thoughts? Any last minute? Hey, don't forget this, or we didn't cover this. Just some touch base.
No, I just think if you're going to start with the right foundation, Curve and Mango are a great starting point, and I'm grateful to be in the conversation around that because it's been so wonderful to see how lean operations can be created. And I would, just welcome that you search out more and find out more about Curve and Mango because there's some specific offerings as well. So,
good. And Rich, any other final thoughts or?
Yeah, I mean, we know how stressful a startup can be, and so if you sign up for Mango Voice's service, we don't charge you at all until you actually onboard, until you actually open date. So you can allocate those costs and that stress somewhere else. So there are no upfront costs with Mango until you're actually open. So you can get all of those things, the mobile app, the phone system, the AI, all at no cost until you're actually got people scheduled and ready to go, which is a huge benefit to practices. And again, if you want to get a hold of me, I put my calendar link in the chat there, and you can schedule a time with me, or just visit mangovoice.com and you can schedule times there as well. And just to echo what Cassie said, Curve is a great solution. Mango is probably the most popular solution for startups. You got to have phones. You have to absolutely have them. And then Dr. Scott Leune is just an all-star when it comes to training these startups. So I would say you've got all your resources you need right here to get going.
Final thoughts, Dr. Leune?
Yeah, some people are ready to just take control of their career and do this. And they're going to move forward and they're going to be ahead and they're going to be very thankful. A lot of people, though, are unsure and scared. And what takes someone from unsure to ready is many times them learning the stuff that they know they don't yet know. It's just learning that will get them there. It's not the area. It's not the economy. It's not who's president. It's none of that stuff. It's just they lack the final information they need. And so if someone listening to this is in that spot where, they think they want this someday, but they're just so unsure because they don't quite feel comfortable knowing exactly what to do next, that's someone that needs to get training. I, of course, offer training. Other people do as well. Our training is one intense day where you get the entire recipe of how to do this. And Curve and Mango are parts of that recipe, but you walk away from that day knowing exactly how to do this. And that's a very good use of someone's time, because it can be completely career and life changing if you take the leap to do the right thing next and actually start that chapter soon as opposed to later.
Yeah. Very good. Well, again, I appreciate everybody's time. I know Cassie, I should have mentioned this, she's actually kind enough to join us from Paris. So she's had a little bit of technical in and out there. So we appreciate her time, though, very much. And obviously, Rich and Dr. Leune, I think hopefully everybody got value from the program. We will follow up with a recording. We'll follow up with contact information. I think we enjoy working with startups. We have a 25-year track record of doing it, and I think work very closely with a lot of folks that have gone through your program, Dr. Leune, and I think also have worked with Mango and Curve. So great team. I think, again, appreciate everybody for your time, and let's keep building from here.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Have a great day.
Everyone.